Vana, how many have joined?
34.
Okay, maybe we can go ahead and get started, and you have it on recording, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our ICTR Enrichment Seminar Series today. Before we get started, I wanted to make a few announcements. The UMB ICTR will be co-sponsoring medical grand rounds this month on Wednesday, March 9th from 12 to 1. Our guest speaker is Dr. Charles Hong. Dr. Hong will be presenting novel drug development effort during COVID pandemic, a path to clinic through ICTR. The next announcement is, if you haven't heard, we have a special inaugural UMB ICTR Community Engaged Research Pilot Grant RFA. The deadline for that RFA is April 11th, 5 p.m. And the eligibility criteria and the RFA can be found on the ICTR website. You can also use this code here to access that page. This is our website here, www.umaryland.edu/ICTR, and more information about that pilot grant, as well as researcher resources and funding in education and training. And with that, I'm going to go to our guest speakers. Today, we have our topic is innovative ways to use social media platforms for research participant recruitment and participation. Our guest speakers happen to be two of our KL2 scholars, and we're really excited that they could join us today. Dr. Jaya Craddock is from the School of Social Work, and joining her as well is Dr. Rachel Breman from the School of Nursing. They have each presentation, and if you would be so kind to hold your questions until at the end of each presentation, you can add your comments or your thoughts in our chat, and we will go through those at the end. Also, at the very end of our presentation, when you go to leave, your browser will be redirected to our satisfaction survey. And if you would be so kind as to take a few moments to give us our thoughts or any additional topics that you would like to hear about in the future. So with that, and I believe Dr. Rachel Breman, you're going to be starting your presentation. Would you like to share your screen? Great.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining today. I appreciate that today is International Women's Day, and I think it's great that both Jaya and I are presenting our work. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Maryland, and my area of interest for research is decision-making during childbirth. And as mentioned, I am going to be presenting on how I use social media to recruit in research. So today, my real objective is to hopefully provide some ideas on how to use social media to recruit your research participants. I do have two polls. The first poll is this. Has anybody in the audience, and Vana, can you launch the poll? Has anyone used social media in any way to promote your research? And I just want to get a sense from everybody, like where you are with using social media in research. And I think the poll automatically closes, right, Vana?
No, I end it.
Oh, you'll end it. Okay, you can end it. I think
Okay.
probably it's a quick answer. Let's see. Did it pop up the results? There we go. Okay, so it's about 50-50. So if you don't use it for promoting your research, I certainly would recommend opening up a Twitter account to do that. Twitter's sort of more for doing that kind of thing than other places, as well as LinkedIn. And I'm just curious what people are currently using for social media. This is because I'm going to be talking about each of these. Well, I'm not really talking about Pinterest, but I will be talking about Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and a little bit about YouTube. So I'm just curious where people are in their journey. And let's just see. Can you put up the results, Vana? So, all right. So this really reflects a lot of what we see. So most people do have a Facebook account, and it's interesting that TikTok is low with this group, but with that's been the most frequently used platform for social media in the last year. So as everybody knows, in March of 2020, almost exactly 2 years ago today, was the start of the pandemic. And in February of 2020, I had submitted my IRB for my KL2 study, which was really going to be using face-to-face recruitment in prenatal clinics in Baltimore City. And of course, that was not going to work because all research activities, in particular face-to-face recruitment, stopped. And I kind of just let it sit. And I thought, okay, well, we'll see what's going to happen with this coronavirus. In the meantime, what happened was, as I mentioned, my interest is really in maternal and newborn health and decision making. And there was a lot of media reports initially about parents and newborns being separated because of coronavirus. And a colleague of mine, Adrian Burgess, called me and said, we really need to try and survey women. We need to get out there and try and get a survey out. And since my KL2 study was kind of hanging in the balance because I didn't know if I was going to be able to recruit the way I had planned, we started drafting a survey and putting together the IRB. And we really thought that we would get this survey out on Facebook. Dr. Burgess had already had surveys that she was able to post to Facebook groups. There's lots of maternal or mothers groups and parent groups on Facebook. So we really thought we would be able to get it out there that way. But what ended up happening was we couldn't access these groups. A lot of them had closed to researchers because of marketing issues, as well as with our previous president. What happened was Facebook kind of closed up a little bit to research and other sort of ways to access users. So then I went to LinkedIn to see other ways that I could try and promote my research. And we ended up coming across Ovia Pregnancy and Parenting app, which is a small app company that's free to users. And what we could do was we could email users, both prenatal users as well as postpartum users of the app. And we, of course, had to, this was a much larger process where we set up a contract and we went through the IRB and all of those things. But this is really how we decided to promote this and get this survey out. And we were pretty successful. So for the prenatal group, we were able to send the survey out, and we had an N of 250 people. And then for the postpartum survey, we were able to have an N of 388. And these were women, primarily female identifying people, that were nationwide. So we reached a much sort of broader audience, maybe not a representative audience in the sense that we didn't have each state equally represented, and it wasn't as diverse a sample economically and education and racially, but we were able to kind of get the word out and get the survey out. And so when I thought about how I was going to recruit for my KL2 study, because the virus still hadn't subsided by July 2020, I thought, okay, maybe using social media and this sort of electronic way of recruiting would work. And so the purpose of my KL2 study was really to explore decision-making during prenatal and intrapartum care. My design was mixed methods, and I needed a larger sample because I wanted to really do some multivariate statistics. And I wanted to, as you start looking in multivariate statistics, you also know that your sample needs to be larger because your boxes have to have a certain number of people in them. So we did some paid advertisements on social media, both Facebook and Instagram. And again, we were able to target a little bit in getting parenting groups, but I wasn't actually able to really get into these groups and have it posted on certain groups. I also used the Ovia app again, because I had success with them before. And then we also used Pacify, which is a breastfeeding app. Since I was really targeting postpartum women, we were able to do a couple of push notifications through that. And then also direct contact with influencers. And influencers was sort of new to me. I have a sister-in-law who works in business, and all of her advertisements had been done using influencers in both TikTok and Instagram. And I wasn't quite ready to go to TikTok, but I was somewhat comfortable with using Instagram. So what we did was we set up an Instagram page, and you can see I don't have a ton of followers. And this was really managed by my research assistant, Sophia Dada, who is an undergraduate student in nursing. And all these pictures I purchased from Shutterstock. And we were able to reach out to Instagram influencers, ask them to, like and share our page. And we would do this very purposefully with IRB approved language. And then what ended up happening is she shared it with one influencer who then shared it on her YouTube channel. And this was over Thanksgiving Day weekend. And every now and then I would check in on the survey on Qualtrics and see, how my enrollment was. And on Thanksgiving Day weekend, I had 500 people log into hit the survey link. And I thought, oh my God, what happened? And it turned out that it went viral a little bit on YouTube. So that was a nice side effect. But what I really still wasn't reaching a very diverse sample. I was low in both the Asian and African American or Black demographic. And so then we decided to reach out to influencers. And I gotta move this thing here. So I'm hoping that you guys can hear this, but we reached out to influencers and we paid them. So this is an influencer who also gets paid advertising through Blue Apron and other places. And we looked at the number of followers, and I can't remember how many followers she had, but it was well over 20,000. And so this is what she did. And she's a new mom. So the people we really reached out to, because we're focusing on new moms and new parents, were people who we assumed would have that following, because that's what they sort of sell themselves as on Instagram. So just so you get a chance to sort of see.
I just got done taking a short survey. Do you guys want to know what it was about? It was about my birthing experience this year with Hayes. And you guys know it was quite a unique one. And one day I'll go into detail. But what's really cool was a research team from the University of Maryland reached out to me because they want as many new moms to take a survey so we can make the birthing experience for future moms even better. So if you guys swipe up here, it'll take you to the survey if you've given birth after August 1st of 2019. I really encourage you to partake in it, because it was, I was able to voice what I liked and what I didn't like about my experience. And you will also be entered to win a e-gift card worth $50 if you take the survey. So just swipe up here.
Okay, so the results, so I stopped recruiting, and I can, go into more depth about how this was broken out, but about 2,076 surveys were initiated, and of those, 1,172 were completed. And as I mentioned, I had some open-ended questions in there. Over 900 people answered the open-ended questions, which is a great use of student time if you ever were trying to engage students in your research to help you go through some of the open-ended questions. And then in addition to that, I wanted to have in-depth interviews with women and really get into and dig into decision-making during their birth. And I was able to recruit 29 people, and at 29, I actually reached saturation at about 25 people, but at 29, I stopped recruiting, and that data is also being analyzed using a qualitative descriptive process. And just to give you a sense of the racial breakdown on the survey, you know, I wasn't as able to, and the yes is the red and the no is purple. So the question is, a birth plan is a form that has your preferences or choices for labor and birth. Did you have one in your most recent birth? And you can see that most people did not. But you can also sort of see the racial breakdown and sort of see that I wasn't able to get as diverse a sample as I would have liked. However, I was able to get a sample size in both the African American and Asian demographic, as well as the Latinx demographic, to run the kind of statistics that I wanted to run for the analysis. So in closing, you know, using social media can be really helpful for recruiting for research. Yes, there are limitations to what you can get, but if you are able to tailor your advertisements to reach the kind of population that you want to reach, then it can be successful. And I also would be remiss if I didn't thank everyone at the ICTR at the University of Maryland, as well as that's the column with Dr. Stephen Davis, Dr. Christy Chang, Dr. Khalil, and Megan and Wanda and Susan and Ivana, and thank them, as well as my mentoring team that's on the other side, and Sophia Dada, who is a fantastic research assistant that I've been using, as well as Casey Jackson at the University of Maryland, who has helped me get all of this through the IRB, which was really, really helpful. And then I also just wanted to let you, just for if you have any interest in these methods, I have been able to publish 2 papers. And for the COVID studies, we've had 3 publications and 1 more is under review, and that's the postpartum one. That's the second one that I'm doing. So now I can stop and answer any questions that may have come up.
So Dr. Breman, if you look at the Q&A.
I see. Hi, Gayasi. It's good to see some familiar names here. So yes, I gave the influencer a script that was IRB approved, and she took the study. So the influencers who provided the advertisement, also they, as part of preparing to do the story on Instagram, they participated in the survey. And then Amber, can you share how much it costs to get an influencer? So I paid each one $1,000, and it's quite a range. Let me tell you, it can be very, very expensive. I also did Mommy Needs a Vodka, and that was $25. They didn't do a story, but they just posted it on their Instagram page. Ballpark budget. So I think it really depends on how many people you're trying to reach. For the apps, it can be really expensive. Ovia, depending on how much interest they have in your study, that can be anywhere from $1,000 to I think $75,000, and that's the same for other app companies such as Baby Center. I personally, how much did I spend on advertising? Well, I only spent, I think $2,500 on advertising because I had a limited budget with the ICTR, and I also didn't, people were really pushing me to go with viral. It's hard to get your stuff to go viral. It takes a lot of luck, but I will say that certain people and influencers on Instagram who really do have a genuine interest in maternal health posted my survey multiple times. Do you have resources for preparing social media for IRB? No, I think they're pretty familiar with promoting and recruiting off of social media. I'm happy to, I can look in my, if you reach out to me online, I can, or through email, I can see what's in my protocol and what I can share with you. I think that's all the questions. How do you decide which influencer is a good fit? Okay, well, that's actually, that takes a little bit of just thinking. So we had a very specific sample. We really wanted to get at postpartum women who had, postpartum people who had given birth within the last year. So we really focused on anything related to baby care, parenting, early parenting influencers, breastfeeding influencers. And we looked at, when we were thinking about whether or not we would pay, we looked at how many followers they had. And if they had at least 50,000 followers, we thought about whether or not we would pay. Most people, I will be honest, most people just posted the survey for us. It was only once I kind of got into this sort of talent agency, I reached out to one person and they were in a talent agency. They had a contract with a talent agency. And so that's when we started. And I was able to negotiate $1,000 for one story over a 24-hour period. So you have to kind of know what you're getting yourself into. No, I did not get an email list for the people on the apps because that's private. Did you just Google what you were looking for in Instagram? Yes, we just did a search. I searched up mommy, I searched up parent, I searched up new mom, new parent, breastfeeding, baby gear. We just kind of drilled down into different people. And I'm doing the same thing on TikTok now, because there's a lot of doulas on TikTok. There's a lot of nurses on TikTok. There's some physicians on TikTok that are, and they're also on Instagram, not as much. It's been sort of interesting to watch how TikTok has kind of taken over the social media space. Anything else? No? Okay. Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to pass the baton over to Dr. Craddock. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Breman, for that presentation. And it's great. Everyone, just a reminder, we will be sending out the link to this presentation, and it will ultimately be posted or archived on the ICTR website. And with that, Dr. Craddock, thank you so much for joining our presentation now.
There we go. I was like, let me unmute myself. Thank you guys for having me. I'm glad to be here. My presentation is slightly different, mainly because I have not done a lot of social media based recruitment, but I've done a lot of text based recruitment, so sending text messaging. So I'm going to share a little bit about using text based recruitment to recruit participants and why I use text based recruitment. So let me see. So just a little bit about my research. My main research really focuses on understanding sexual health communication among young Black adults, so ages 18 to 24. So I'm in this young adult area. And what I found is working with young adults, especially young Black adults, is that even though they're a population that you can see around, they're hard to engage and they're hard to, in a sense, pin down. They're not in like a community setting that you can just go to often and find that population. They're not in high schools. They're not in shelters or places where you can go to and just collect data from, a community-based sample of young Black adults. So what I decided to do is use a method called respondent-driven sampling. And I'm going to tell you how I turned this traditional-based method that you use, like ticketing, into a text-based method and how it really enhanced my recruitment. So just a little bit of background about respondent-driven sampling. So respondent-driven sampling is a sampling method that is used. It's kind of like snowball method. And it's usually used with hidden populations. So a lot of times it was used with people who are using drugs or people who may be, like I said, not located in a specific place that you can go to and recruit, hidden populations. But when I was working with young Black adults, I found that not only were they're not located in a specific place, but they're also hard to engage. And so I decided to use this RDS method to try to engage young participants by using, recruiting maybe an initial person and having them vouch for the study and recruit their friends into the study. So RDS involves like a dual incentive system where you incentivize the participants. So the first person I recruit, I pay them for participating in the study, and then I also give them an incentive for referring other people to the study. And sometimes the rewards can be monetary, or it can be excitement around contributing to a issue or providing information that it's not often studied. And so I use kind of both methods of both monetary and then also an incitement for sharing your story, for providing information that's not often shared. And so I'll show you how that was done. So just so you get a sense of what respondent-driven sampling looks like, you typically recruit the first person, the seed, and then you ask them to refer at least 3 people. And traditionally you give them tickets, and then the tickets, they go and recruit 3 more people, and then they recruit people who recruit people, so you can build this sample of this hidden population. It also helps with understanding the perimeters of a specific community. So as I mentioned, these are the steps of RDS. So a research team will recruit the initial participants, so your seeds, and then you will have them complete the study. You'll give them incentive for participating, and then you provide them with referral coupons. And then whoever participates in the study, you'll give them an incentive for referring those individuals. So for me, I actually had a little challenge with IRB around people knowing who participated in the study. So we did something slightly different. Instead of giving them an incentive for every person they invited that participated in the study, we gave them just a flat rate. If you invite 3 people, we'll give you $10 just for inviting 3 people, whether or not they participate in the study. That way we didn't have to disclose if their friends did or did not participate in the study. All the new recruits were also offered the same incentives as the initial seeds, and sampling in once we reached our maximum target community. So for me, this is kind of what happened, and this is why I moved to text-based or switched my method to text. I used the traditional method at first. I started off with 2 seeds. I recruited them, I interviewed them, I printed out tickets, I stamped them with numbers so I can identify who gets what numbers and then match them and have this whole system of who participated and where did they come from kind of thing. And when I gave these 2 seeds their tickets, they said they gave it to their friends, and I heard nothing. And a month went by and I reached out like, hey, did you tell your friend about the study? Did you give them the tickets? They were like, yeah, I told them. They said they're going to call you. Nothing. Another month went by and I was like, okay, I need to do something different. And I talked to my mentors, I talked to the IRB, and I said, is it possible for us to take the same message that we have on these tickets and put it in a text message and just ask them to forward the text message to their friends? And I got IRB approval. My mentor said that's a great idea. So that's what I did. I took the same message that was on the tickets, and I'll show you an example. I put it in a text message. And so what I end up doing is after each person completed the survey, at this point, I was meeting people in person. After they completed the survey, I sent them the text message right there. And I said, if you forward it to 3 people right now, and I'll just give you your $10 incentive for referring friends, and then you can leave and we're good to go. They would forward this message right then. And then once, before we even signed like receipts or anything, I started getting responses right away. Like, hey, my friend just sent me a text message about your study and I want to learn more. And so from there, I had 3 more seeds and I grew my entire study off of just 3 seeds. And I'll show you kind of what the text message, this is pretty much what the text message looked like. It was very long, but it gave them brief information about the study. They were able to put their friend's name in it if they wanted to. They can say, hey, blah, blah, blah. I just participated in a research study about sex, relationship, and communication with the researcher. And I thought you may be interested. Her name is Jaya Craddock, and she's currently singing, and they gave the information with all the incentive information. So like I said, this was the script from IRB. I also use, like I said, symbolic like incentives, like this is a really important study due to the limited information about young Black women and sexual health in research world. And you can make a difference by understanding the successes and the challenges in the Black community. If you want to participate, you know, you can text her here, and they were able to just hit the text message and respond. So from that, I end up recruiting pretty much. So the first 2 months was like May and June. And then in July, I end up recruiting over 100 new participants, right? And so in 1 month span, I went from 2 months getting no one to 1 month getting over 100 participants or 100 interested young Black women. And so I had 104 who were interested, 10 who were ineligible, 94 that were eligible. And then I had my final sample of 78 who I interviewed. And so this is just a little information about who I recruited. This was in Los Angeles for this first study. And then I did it again. So this was a pilot study, you know, just to show that was possible. And then I did it again, starting with 14 seeds. And I recruited this time my seeds from the Los Angeles area, Twitter and Facebook. And it worked again. And I had a total of 427 referrals. It took a little longer because I had to pause in some instances. We did some in-person and we did some online as well, but I was able to get a total sample of 200 young Black women, which was really great because a lot of my colleagues who were doing research in this area was having a really hard time recruiting young Black women. And I found that this text-based way was really helpful in not only breaking into this community, but also in building trust. So if your friend participated in the survey and they said they had a great experience, then you're more likely to participate if they vouch for it. And so this vouching method really enhanced and increased my ability to recruit and collect data from this hard to engage population. And so there are a lot of limitations with RDS, especially when you're analyzing data. One is interdependence, because everyone in the networks are connected. So like in the last study, if I have 14 seeds, that's technically 14 networks. And so those individuals who participated in the study who are connected to that 14 seeds or one of the 14 seeds are connected within that network. So there's some interdependence. There also is some homophily in behaviors, ideas, and beliefs, meaning people who are friends and people who may refer each other have similar behaviors, ideas, and beliefs. But if you're interested in a population of young Black adults or a specific community, you might come across that anyways. Also, one of the things we were worried about at first was geographic limitation, meaning, people are going to refer people who they're close with. But we found that not to be true in our sample. We actually, like I said, started off in Los Angeles, and we ended up with 43% of our population from the East Coast, 42% of our population from the West Coast, about 7% of our population was from the Northeast, and then 8% was from the Midwest. So we ended up having a way more diverse geographically sample than we originally thought, because people were referring friends that they were close to and people who they spoke to, even if they weren't in the same city, which really expanded where our reach was in this population. So this is a very short presentation, so I am open to questions. Let me know if you have any questions about how I adapted the RDS or anything else like that. I'm going to stop sharing. Have I considered?
Dr. Craddock, would you mind reading the questions out loud?
Yes. So it says, I've been considering using this method. I'm curious to know how you would, one, get a more diverse population. So I guess it depends on who you're recruiting. So my population was set specifically to young Black women age 18 to 24. And so I asked them to recruit only young Black women age 18 to 24. So if you wanted a more diverse population, that's you setting who they can refer and who you're recruiting, right? So you can diversify as much as you want based on that method. I hope I'm answering your question correctly. Feel free to follow up if you want more specifics on like diversity or how you can go about doing that. How did the text service work? So how did the text service work? I actually did, I just used a Google number, and I had the script ready. And I just sent them from my Google number, the text message. It was already scripted, just copy and paste. And it sent it out to them. And then when they hit the number, it just came right back to me. So it was very easy. What did I pay my seeds? I paid my seeds the same that I paid any other participant. So it was $25 to take a part in the survey and $10 for referring 3 or more participants. So if you referred 3 or more, I just paid you a flat rate of $10. Is there a cost for a Google number? No, Google numbers are free. And it's also great because when you have a Google number, you can also associate it with a study. So like right now, I have another study that I am working on, and we used a Google number. We did text messaging and emails, and we're able to get the text message via emails and respond via, like you can respond on Google numbers on your computer, on your desktop. And you can also send emails using that account. Where do I find my seeds and how did I reach out to them? So I found my seeds in different places. I went to community events. I also did Facebook, kind of like Rachel, Facebook and Twitter, and we posted about our study, like, hey, we're looking for participants. And then from there, once we recruited that individual and they said they were interested in participating, we went ahead and said, okay, it's part of participating, as part of the consent process. We're asking you to recruit at least 3 people. If they didn't want to recruit 3 people, that's fine. They weren't paid the additional $10, but most young Black women were like, sure, I'll let my friends know about it. And I had people who referred like 12 people or 8 people. And, it was up to the participant of who they wanted to refer. And then, some people might refer 5 people and only 1 respond back, but everybody was paid $10 for just referring. What are some of the reasons why each presenter would not recommend each method? So for me, RDS, I wouldn't recommend RDS if you're able to access your population very easily. meaning like if you are interested in studying, like previously, a lot of my work was around homeless youth, and you're able to go to a shelter or a day location, and you're able to just go and recruit participants in that way, it will be easier and kind of address some of the limitations you will face when you're doing RDS. And then, so that's one reason why I wouldn't do RDS. Also, like I said, one of the limitations is that they're interdependent, meaning that, there's a lot of similarities, and you have to account for that when you're running your analysis. It's a little bit harder to generalize when you're not randomly selecting or doing a convenient sample of young Black adults. But like I said, a lot of individuals were having a hard time engaging young Black adults, and we were having a hard time recruiting them. And so this was the best way that we can do that to increase engagement in this population. Rachel, I'm not sure if you want to answer that question too. What are some reasons why you would not recommend a method?
I think it really depends on who you're trying to recruit. I was told, so one of the reasons I wasn't having success on Facebook, somebody told me, I was just walking around the neighborhood and I saw a pregnant neighbor, and I said, "Oh, are you in a Facebook group?" Because I wanted to see if she would post the survey for me. And she's like, "Don't take this the wrong way, but Facebook is much more your generation than my generation." And I think to some extent, to reach each generation, you have to figure out where they are. So I asked her where she was getting her information, and she said the Ovia app. And that's how I found Ovia, because otherwise I'm not sure how I would have gotten to that. I think it's also, you are going to miss I think unless you're using something like what Dr. Craddock was talking about, you're going to miss your most vulnerable people no matter what, unless you're really doing face-to-face recruitment and you can capture that population in that way. And even then, it's only certain people that will participate in a survey or a study anyway. So there's always going to be some amount of bias, and you have to address that as well. I don't know, Devin, if that was for Dr. Craddock or for me, but for the survey I had, and I'm pretty certain for Dr. Craddock's study as well, we had inclusion and exclusion criteria, and they answered those questions, and you just hope that people are answering them truthfully. Are you okay to answer that too, Jaya?
Yeah, so another way to do that is you can have like multiple question checks in a sense throughout your survey, where you ask a specific question at the beginning, like maybe like gender, sex, I don't know, like some kind of demographic information, and then somewhere else in the survey you ask that same question again, which allows you to see if they answer the same, like these questions the same, then maybe this is a legit real person in this population. If not, then then you might count that as like, not a real response or not a real participant. It's hard to verify really whether or not a person is who they say they are. In the sense, with the RDS, at least they're being referred by someone who has already been verified. And with my, one of the things I did first is I also collected qualitative data in my research, and I interviewed 40 of the first participants. So rather we did some online interviews, we did some in-person interviews. So I was able to verify at least the first 40 people who participated in my study. And then they continue to refer their friends from there. But I mean, that's a question that everybody kind of struggles with, especially if you're doing online surveys when you're not seeing the person, or you're not hearing or talking to the person over the phone. Like my current research, we did Zoom interviews and then also phone calls, because it was with young Black adults, and they were like, we don't want to do Zoom interviews actually. So we end up doing phone calls, but we had to figure out like, what is the best way to verify that the participant is actually from our target population? And some of it is just doing like several checks in the sense of like, I'm going to ask you this question several times. And if you answer it right each time, then we're just going to assume that you're from that population. But you never really know if you're not seeing that person face to face.
So we have another question from in our QA box here. Did you collect income, educational, or other SES data? If so, did you notice any trends?
Is this for Dr. Breman, or is this question for me? Hold on.
I think it probably could be addressed to both.
Oh, sorry. So my population was young Black women for this study, age 18 to 24. So we did ask about education. We didn't really focus on income at that age, but we did ask education, geographical location. We asked about their zip code of where they were raised and also zip code of where they currently live to kind of get a sense of movement, especially in the transitional age. Because some of the young women that we interviewed maybe originally lived somewhere or was from one place, and then they went to college or they went to school or they moved across country for jobs. And so we wanted to get a sense of where they were from and then where they currently are. Did I see trends? Specifically for education, a lot of my population had some college education, whether it was 2 years or full 4-year degree. This was an 18 to 24 range. So I know there's certain people that I recruited that were not college educated, but they might have referred friends who were, and that ended up being a majority of our population for this study. I hope that answered that question, Rachel.
Yeah, I would say overall my population I had at least some college, but the YouTuber that I mentioned that put and unfortunately I never saw what she posted or how it went viral, but like I said, she was a teen mom. I think she's 20 now, but she was a teen mom when she started her YouTube channel and Instagram group and basically turned her teen pregnancy into her career. She actually recruited the youngest demographic for me, as well as the most number of people on public assistance. The Pacify app, which was that breastfeeding app, is actually part of the WIC program. And the push notification went to WIC recipients. And I was hoping to get a much more economically sort of diverse population from that. And unfortunately, I did not get a high yield on survey takers from that day when the push notification went out. Only 3 people took the survey. And I think only 1 of them completed it. So I think it's really hard. The reason why some of these populations are hard to reach is because these people are very busy doing a lot of other things, and taking a survey for $50 possible gift card is not necessarily a way to make money for them. Sorry, I'll read the last one. So, did either presenter ever present your study for recruitment amongst community groups? And if so, how did you maximize these opportunities? I presented my study to the WIC program in Washington, D.C. I was able to get to them. I can't even remember how, but I was able to get to them, and I was able to get flyers put in every single WIC bag. So I did it that way. I wasn't able to do the push notification went through Pacify to WIC recipients, and then the paper went that way. I don't know, Jaya, if you want to answer.
Yeah, I presented, I did some like community health fairs. And so, we went around and we talked to people and we passed out flyers, and we kind of did that kind of recruitment. I didn't go to a specific center. As I said, it was kind of hard to pin down a center. I did also recruit on a listserv from oh my gosh, Black Women for Wellness. So I can't remember exactly the name of the organization, but it was called Black Women for Wellness. And I was able to talk to somebody there who sent out my information on a listserv for that group. But it didn't yield as much as, like I said, like the person-to-person referral. So the RDS is what yielded the most. People sent things to groups and I tried, but I think when it comes to like certain populations, the trust is not always there. So they might get something and say, I don't know about participating. I even had a participant who I met in person and I was interviewing and we did the survey and she was referred by a friend. And she told me, well, I told my dad I was going to come do the study and he told me, don't do no study. They're going to experiment on you. And she was like, no, daddy, it's something different. My friend did it. It's fine. But she said he kept persistent, like he was like really persistent, like, don't do that. They're going to experiment on you. So there's still these messages out there. And if, I found that if it wasn't someone they knew personally that would refer them, I just had a hard time with recruiting individuals. I mean, there were people I walked up to like, hey, do you have time right now to interview? And of course, this was before COVID. So I was able to do that to like, hey, I see you sitting in the Starbucks. Is it okay if do you have time to do a study real quick? So I did kind of some of that to initial recruitment for my seeds to kind of build the bridge for people. But I did find it challenging that when I went out into the community that people kind of was like, oh, thank you. Yeah, sure. And kind of left it there. I didn't yield as much in that way.
Hello, everyone. I don't see that there's any other questions, so I think we will close that. Dr. Craddock and Dr. Breman, do you have any other comments that you want to make?
I'll say something real quick. For my last study, which like Rachel, I put my IRB in before COVID and then COVID hit, and we had to reorganize things and think about recruiting in a different way. I found it really challenging to recruit young Black adults, not because they didn't know about the study, but getting them engaged. And I tried not using RDS this time around to see how it worked. And it took us forever to recruit. And we end up still asking people to refer their friends and to reach back out. Hey, can you contact this person or can you let them know to text us? And then we will reach back out to them. And so we end up going back to more of a referral based sample to get this new sample of young Black adults because it was just with COVID, it was really no place to go, like no community organization. And I did present at some community Zoom meetings and some of these other groups that focused on or had a large population of young Black adults, but it was really challenging to engage them and kind of build that trust without having someone who can vouch strongly for the study, like, hey, I participated in it, you should take it. It's very easy or quick or they're friendly or whatever they say. So yeah, really thinking about what it takes to engage that population. And we also for this study had to change things we were on Zoom at first and then we moved to phone calls because that's what the youth said they wanted. They said, we prefer to talk to you or we're not locked down to a computer. So keeping in mind what's best for the population you're looking for or trying to reach.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that, well, wait, there's one. Oh, okay. Many thanks to both speakers. Happy International Women's Day to everyone. Thank you for that, Dr. Christy Chang. So with that, everyone, thanks so much for attending today's presentation. Just want to remind you that we will be sending out the link to this presentation to the attendees. And if you would be so kind, when you leave the meeting, your browser will default to our satisfaction survey. Please take a moment to answer those questions and give us your feedback and any suggestions that you might have for future presentations. Thank you, Dr. Craddock and Dr. Breman, for being here today, presenting this great discussion and great questions. Everyone have a great rest of the week. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.